All right, welcome back to Radio Wasteland. We have been listening to our guest, William Ramsey, talking about Aleister Crowley. I've been saying Crowley, but Crowley apparently, which is also his name in that show that Jared and I like. Aleister Crowley, 9/11, and the New World Order.
Yes.
That was a lot to unpack. You know, I had said that at the beginning, and then he unpacked it, and I'm all, that's some serious spatial economics, getting all of that in there. I know you don't think Trump is a breath of fresh air, so let's remove that from the end.
Yeah, okay, let's skip right by that.
Well, we'll come to it, but as far as the everything shy of the Trump, the possibility of the using 9/11 to control people in a New World Order fashion, stemming from occultism, how do you take this?
I think I believe some of it.
Do you?
I don't believe 9/11 was an inside job because, I'm familiar with the evidence and that situation, and I just don't think it makes that much sense. I do think 9/11 was absolutely leveraged by politicians to, get what they wanted and strip people of civil liberties. Like, I don't know how you could even argue that.
Absolutely.
And also, when he's talking about, presidents being part of the same tradition, sure, I mean, every president from the 80s to now has basically been neoliberal in terms of economic policy. They've differed on abortions, guns, whatever, but in terms of how they want the economy to function, deregulation good, entitlements bad. That's kind of been the governing philosophy.
Even on the Democrat side.
They're
just a little slower about it.
The Democrats used to be much more progressive than they are. When you look at Roosevelt in economic ways, I should say. I'm not talking socially progressive, but if you look at, Roosevelt, if you look at Johnson, they were pretty upfront about, the fact that they wanted the government to take care of the poor.
Right.
And you compare that to Clinton, he cut welfare by a lot. He entirely reformed the way it worked.
Yeah, he was the 5-year guy, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Basically, you get 5 years of welfare, and then you're on your own.
Precisely. So, and he was kind of the first Democrat who basically saw the success of Reagan, and the Democrats hadn't won in a while. So, he was like, I'll just be Reagan, but I'll run as a Democrat.
They had that peanut farmer. They had that peanut farmer in there.
That was before Reagan. Jimmy Carter?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
So, anyway, I'm kind of getting off track here. So I think that bit makes sense. I think the occult connection is very complicated, and I don't think I just didn't find that particularly convincing, especially when he's talking about numerology. It's like, there are so many significant events happening every single day, and every one of them has, who knows how many different numbers associated with them. We live in a complicated world, and it's run by numbers. You can find
it's like the argument of reading statistics, and you can bend those statistics to your argument's will.
Yeah, I think you could probably find occult numbers in any significant historical event.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you believe in the occult at all?
Yeah. I don't think it's very significant. We've actually talked to a lot of, witches and psychics and whatever on the show. I think it's, possible that they have some form of power.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think, I don't think that power is very effective or useful. I think it's more of a curiosity than...
It's more of a nudge than a push.
Yeah, exactly. So, but that's not really what we're talking about with Crowley. We're not talking about power. We're talking about, kind of real power, which is that he was a cult leader.
Right.
And, and his ideas had power, a lot more power than you would get from, magic. But these guys were not occultists. And you could argue, okay, they were hiding it from everyone. But at the end of the day, there was no evidence that Reagan, the Bushes, Clintons, etc., were occultists.
Right. Yeah.
So, I don't know. Maybe he'd argue that that there is. I'm not familiar with it. I think, he's probably gone a lot deeper into the evidence than I have.
Right. As with most things, I'm not a firm believer in much of anything. But I want to believe. I really want to believe that we've been controlled by a cult sub-organization and stuff like that. But I personally, for me, if I'm going to make that leap to say that we believe in an occult controlling faction of our entire society,
right,
I'm going to make the leap and say that people were catching on, and so they put a new face on it.
Right.
I'm not going to say that Trump is not part of it, because...
Well, if you look at his policies, they're the same as everyone before him.
Yeah, and I mean, how many controlled societies and empires and all this stuff were lost due to an election?
Right. Yeah.
A lot of them were lost due to war and bloodshed and coups and all sorts of stuff, but an election, I don't think so.
The Illuminati is just sitting in their, triangle-shaped boardroom, and they're just like, well, I guess we'd better pack it in, boys.
You're right, totally.
I think it's over.
It was a close call. It was a close call.
Yeah.
Totally. It looks like Stevenson got it on the draft there. Stevenson gets the whole pile, like they were betting on it or something.
And, if this organization can manufacture this whole Trump-Russia thing, they can absolutely win an election.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I do believe that there are factions that... I do believe that corporations are more powerful than our government at this point. Or I do believe that what corporations have is, they're not more powerful, but what they are is...
not accountable.
Not glacially slow.
That's another thing.
They're able to move quickly, where our government, by the time we're recovering from some attack from one corporation, we've been slapped in the back forehead and kicked in the stomach and all sorts of other things by 5 other corporations by the time we're recovering from something from like 30 years ago.
Yeah.
It's just like we're held at the whim. And so basically, until we say absolutely not, we will continue to be at the whim of corporations. That's my personal take on this.
I will say, though, I agree with the notion that Trump is an outsider in the political sense.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I don't think anyone who was an establishment politician wanted him to win. I think that's
I don't even think Trump
very clear.
Intended on winning. There just came a point where, the only thing Trump wanted...
I think it was kind of a publicity stunt, and it got all the producers on him,
Yeah.
Where did we go right?
And he's not really one for saying, I'm sorry or I was wrong, so we kind of had to go all in.
Yeah.
And I guess if you're playing the long game for your kids, I don't know how long of a long game you can play when you're like
70.
Old as dirt.
Yeah.
But if you're playing the long game for your kids, in 30 years, people probably aren't going to hate on him, and his business is probably going to be all the larger than it is today.
Maybe.
Just because we have a short memory.
That is certainly true.
So it's like the name will hold on, the brand will hold on.
Yeah.
But the actions of one family member is not going to hold on.
Well, by the time we elect Milo Yiannopoulos for president, Trump will look pretty good.
Right. Is that the first Venetian president? What is that?
I think
Milo Yiannopoulos?
I think it's a Greek name.
Oh,
he's just this... He's basically a professional troll.
Oh, okay. I'd never heard the name.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Or, President Shapiro.
Right.
That's maybe a little more mainstream, but just as horrible.
Or Mountain Dew Camacho.
I don't know. Mountain Dew Camacho recognizes when he's out of his depth and he seeks expert counsel.
Totally.
I think those are useful qualities in a leader.
He recognizes a big brain when he sees one.
Precisely.
All right, you're listening to Radio Wasteland. Come on back. We're going to talk about what we got going on next week.